Everything felt new when I explored the lost coast of California, which is a place way out of the way along the Pacific coast in that state. New territory of any kind can actually be helpful when dealing with grief. It helps us to move beyond what is familiar. Everyone knows grief is attachment, whether it's the loss of a loved one or the loss of a job or the loss of something precious. It's always the attachment that hurts. But the mind is not just attached. The mind has often literally become identified with that which it loved. On a practical level, this means that the person or thing that we loved has become a part of who we actually are, a central part of our life. And when they die, or when that thing we care about is lost, a part of ourselves feels like it's lost as well. Even after this loss, the mind remains identified, looking for what is no longer there. And that's that experience of grief. Like I remember when my mom died, I want my mommy. That was the thought I had. And it's still looking, it's still expecting for that, for her to be there. So this is a habit. And and so when my mom was alive, I used to be able to call up mom, talk to her anytime. She was just always around. And when she died, I no longer had that option. But my mind still operated habitually. It would think, oh, yeah, mom will know, or I'll think to call her, or something like that. And then I would feel sad because I couldn't call her anymore. I was unable to fulfill that desire. It was like all the neurons in my brain had built all these pathways to the concept of mom in my mind. 40 years of connections. And I imagine it's like a map of all the roads converging onto a city. And then suddenly one day that city no longer exists. Like, what do I do? All those roads are going there, but there's nothing there anymore to connect to. And so it takes time and attention to close all those roads or redirect them to other places or to mark them as kind of historical only, or what other ways you may think of to work with those roads or repurpose those roads. And because this job is large and takes time, the mind resists. The mind's basically lazy. It wants to just stay with what's familiar. Um, it's doesn't want to do anything that it doesn't have to do. With a well-established relationship, the mind knows just how to navigate to and from that quote unquote city of the other person. The setup is working for the mind. It doesn't want to start from scratch building new cities and roads. So it kind of gives up. It just kind of circles and becomes like a loop, right? Trying to go to that city, it doesn't exist. Okay, what do I do now? Well, let's try going to that city. Well, it doesn't exist. Okay, well, what do I do now? Well, let's go to that city. And it just kind of goes around and around like that. This is grief. The mind thinks it shouldn't have happened, and then it stays stuck trying to go to that city that no longer exists. And because it can't go there, it gets more and more frustrated. And this zaps what little energy was available for rebuilding, and it becomes a negative feedback loop. Inquiry helps to break out of the loop. When the mind goes down any road to the quote unquote city of mom, it is always motivated by some want or need. I want to share this with her. I need to talk with someone who understands me. I need a hug. These are wants coming from inside of me that I want to share or interact with my mother. When they come up and I question these thoughts using the work of Byron Katie, I find truer statements. These are turnarounds. I want to share this with me, or I can talk with someone who understands me, not necessarily mom. Um, I need to give a hug. And these turnarounds get the mind to start looking outside of its little loop that it's been on and seeing other ways where it can actually either meet the needs that it has, or it may find that it doesn't have the needs. Like, what I actually need is just to share this with myself, and it's enough. So the mind starts to see other options. Mom is not the only city in my world, and I'm not dependent on just this one relationship to get what I need. Options start to open up and enthusiasm starts to build again. But this is a practice. Understanding this is not enough. The mind has to go through this process of questioning each want and need until it sees that all the roads to quote unquote mom are not actually viable or even necessary. It takes time for life to bring up each one. It takes time for it to question each one and turn each one around. But the alternative is doing nothing. Then the mind wins. It just doesn't have to adjust, but grief continues to thrive unabated. The choice is yours. Which way works best for you? If you want to look closely at grief, then there are articles on my website, and you will also find coming up there's going to be a little mini course on grief. So I'm just kind of giving you a heads up on that. And you can find all of that at theworkasmeditation.com.